This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 851 for the week of Monday, January 13th, 2025. My name is Steven.
My name is Greg.
And we got Simba here too. This is the SGS week, which if you are new to this, SGS, based off of SBS from the volumes, is our special off-week podcast where Greg, who is a columnist for VJump, OnePiece.com, and a series advisor for Netflix's One Piece series, and me, Steven, translator for the One Piece manga in Shonen, Jump, and MangaPlus, break down the latest events and share our expertise. I wrote up that little reminder so that I make sure I put that into to each episode just to cover our bases.
That's really nice. You know, there
yeah.
are some episodes that must start, and there must be some people out there who are like,
"Yeah,
who are these people?"
Right? Why are they talking about
these? Aren't the usual fun people I hear with jokes and sarcasm? Yeah.
But speaking of covering the bases. I'll just do a little quick Patreon plug for the podcast. You can subscribe to our Patreon at One Piece Podcast and get access to all sorts of cool stuff. On a weekly basis, we will always have the alternate sketches and titles and some other creative stuff that is part of the recording process. I believe Delaney usually puts in some of the deliberations, like you'll hear us react to the unveiling of the sketches in between the manga recap and the piece together, and fun stuff like that. That, as well as access to some of our other shows, such as the complete Forced to Watch 4Kids from Alex and Steve, rewatching the 4Kids One Piece dub, as well as other cool stuff like that. So with that out of the way, let's see. News. It's a new year. What's news with you, Greg?
Happy 2025. What's new with me? Let's see. I just spent a ton of money going to and then existing in Tokyo. And I haven't been out in the city in quite some time, so I just started buying up all things that I was like, I can't normally get this. Especially clothes and things that, because size is obviously a big issue over here in Japan.
Right.
When you're a larger fellow or have longer arms than usual. Every single parka or hoodie that I'll buy over here, I just stick out my arm and the sleeve just like goes back to my elbow, which is super fun.
Yeah.
Because people here don't grow up, they just grow out. So, That's very difficult. But no, it was good. We got to see family, do the New Year's thing. I don't know if people are aware. New Year's in Japan is spent quite differently than it is at least in some of the English speaking countries I know. It's like, yes, they do have countdowns, and yes, there are events on TV, but like the vast majority of the family is probably sitting at home in the kotatsu, eating a mikan and like drinking tea or something.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. Like their big NHK program that happens at the stroke of midnight is something called Yukutoshi Kurutoshi. And it's literally near silent footage of a prevalent temple. And they ring a bell very slowly. And that's how they literally ring in the new year. That's about it. And just like, oh. And then I go back and look at home of footage of New Year's in New York. And, whoa, yeah. And I'm just like, culture differences, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, they don't they don't crack open the champagne or go out and be if they do anything adventurous, it's just to get a super early
Fukubukuro.
To go to the temple. Why is this slipping my mind? Hatsumode.
Mikuji? Hatsumode, yeah.
Yeah, to the New Year's visit to the temple, which is a very popular
and
custom.
The New Year's fortunes are those are vicious. Those are like people will will buy multiple ones. I don't know, it's a tradition. You buy your fortune, which
Right.
is ironic, but you spend money to buy your fortune for the year, and it tells you how fortunate you are or aren't. And I don't it's funny to me. Some people will just buy it and they'll get like the worst one, which is like Kyo, which is just like
You're right.
absolute shit luck.
Yeah, disaster.
And people are like, okay, all right, well, that's what I got. And then other people will just keep buying until they get the luckiest one.
Yeah.
Which is such a great thing for temples. Like, good on you.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
on you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, there's definitely no connection between that and like gacha mechanics where, if you didn't like this, just keep buying until you get the one you want. Although they do have the custom that if you get a bad luck, oh, well, we have this like helpful like board or this area where you can tie the fortune here, and that will keep the bad luck here, so you don't take it with you off the premises.
Yep.
So
Precisely.
You're still covered. Yeah.
Well, and that's really good point. You remind me. That's only one layer of bad luck. Then, if you're a certain age, then you also you by nature have shit luck for the year. So you have to you also have to get rid of that. But then you pay for your protection amulet.
Right.
And that's
right.
It's a lot of money involved in that alone. But the cheapest part is the praying, because that's like 10 yen, right? 10, 20 yen.
You just
throw it in the box.
Little coin. Mm-hmm.
But no, that was my New Year's. Very Japanese New Year's this year. But how about you? How you doing over there? You all right?
Yeah. Yes. So my New Year's was very nondescript. Not much to talk about there. Holidays were fine. It's been a little more exciting than anybody wanted where I live in Southern California right now. Of course, who knows what it's like by the time this episode does come out, since we are recording a couple days before you usually see it. But we're in the middle of a giant natural catastrophe up in LA, which is north of me. If you somehow have not seen any news whatsoever in the past week, there's been a huge wildfire, several wildfires up there, which is, if you don't know, my personal story is something that I have experienced, my family has experienced, losing a home due to the unique system, ecosystem that we have in California, which just every now and then seems to produce these really horrific, just enormous, fire catastrophes. And this one has really hit LA very hard. There have been multiple fires. There was one in Pacific Palisades, which is a very rich. It's close to Santa Monica, right along the water. A lot of very expensive homes and celebrity homes and things like that were lost there. But another one up north of that in Altadena was super damaging, and it for whatever reason this time it does seem like it really hit these fires really hit a lot of residential areas, and there were lots of just whole blocks of houses that were wiped out. And it seems like I've seen probably like just anecdotally probably a dozen stories of either people that I know somewhat, maybe not super well, but whom I've interacted with, or people that I follow who are talking about their family members or friends of friends, whatnot, with all the GoFundMe's and things for people who did lose their homes. So it's been kind of rough. I feel very fortunate that it has not. Nothing has really started up near me down in San Diego, at least at the time that we're recording this. But definitely seeing all those stories and hearing people recount stuff brings back some very traumatic personal experiences. So it's been a tough week. Obviously, there's always causes to worthy causes to support with your charitable spending if you are in a mind to do so. There's always stuff happening around the world. This is definitely one of those cases where I think, contributions can go a long way to help people get back on their feet and stuff. So if you are in that sort of mood, I would urge you to find someone whose story resonates with you, or a charity that does work with people who are trying to get back on their feet after a wildfire like this. So something to keep in mind.
Meanwhile, over here, we've been dealing with snow.
Snow, yeah.
Actually, where I live is fine, but it's actually some record-breaking snow that has really crippled a little bit of the infrastructure for a bit over in northern Japan, and that has been an icy situation too. It's funny, you got fire over on that side and ice over on this side. I don't know. It's just one of those things you think somebody should write a song about.
Yeah, or write a story. I hope it has a good ending.
Ow.
As far as like I don't know, to bring it back to One Piece stuff. Obviously, this is the SGS, so this means when you hear this, it's because there's no manga chapter for the week. In this case, it's because we are in the holiday period for Shonen Jump, where there is no issue this week. So there's not a lot of news as far as One Piece goes. In fact, I'm not really sure if I have anything specific other than that. Hey, it will be back next week. We will have our regularly scheduled manga recap and everything. But unless there's something that you recall that I am forgetting, I think we can move on into our manga recap and go over what's happened in the last 2 chapters.
Nothing I can think of.
All right.
That's been confirmed.
All right. Let's take a quick break for station identification, and we'll be right back. All right, this is our manga recap. We are going to be going over chapters 1134 and 1135 this time. And I do have my recaps. I think this time, since we usually go one at a time, I'll do them each individually. So we'll start with 1134, wherein Luffy attempts a formal read Yakuza greeting to Saul. Lilith reveals that she has brought a clone of Vegapunk and intends to build a new lab in Elbaf. At the Walrus School, the giant children eschew violence and claim the warrior heritage is a thing of the past. Ripley describes the policies of the late King Harold and how it led Loki to kill him. Saul shows off the Owl Library where all the books from Ohara are stored. Loki talks over the phone with a mysterious figure, and a Shanks-like person and a bandaged woman appear in the castle via a familiar pentagram circle. That's a lot that happened in this chapter.
All right. Let's see. We've got a great color spread of French here, which is a little bit melancholy.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's a tribute to our good friend Yao, who I think we discussed a little bit last time, did we not?
Yeah, we discussed it, and then after that was the Jump Festa ceremonies, which we did we did go over the week after that. So,
but very cool illustration here.
Yeah,
great tribute for Oda and what must have been a tough decision all around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I mentioned last time that I think Luffy was trying to imitate somebody when he did this, and
yes,
I looked a little bit more into it, and yes, it does appear to in fact be Jinbei.
That's right. Yeah, it wasn't clear initially or before this, but then when you see this scene, it's like, oh, right. He's doing the speech from Wano.
It's kind of cool to see Jinbei influencing Luffy, because
Yeah.
for a long time, Brook had that new member feel,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it took quite a long time. I mean, if you're a newer reader, newer meaning maybe past 6-7 years,
Yeah.
if you're a newer reader, then I'm sure he just feels the same as anybody else. But for a lot of us, for quite a while, Brook felt like the new guy,
Mm-hmm.
for a very long time, for me at least, and for others who I've mentioned who are reading around the same time. But this helps me see Jinbei as more of or less of the new guy at this point, because he's now influencing Luffy in interesting ways, in his daily life. So that's kind of cool. I like to see him interacting that way, in not unsimilar to how Robin smiling
Mm-hmm.
just seemed to cement her role as well.
Right.
It's just nice to see, to feel that a crew member is part of them. I mean, obviously they're a part of them, but just that they feel like a natural arm of the
Yes.
crew.
Yeah, I think that Oda has been very deliberate in a way with Jinbei that he wasn't with Brook, where I think, he knows, like, okay, yeah, the crew was 9 members for many, many years, and now Jinbei is joining as the 10th, and it feels, it might look a little odd, like, wow, it's pretty late to be adding another crew member and having them, like, feel like a natural fit. And so I do think he has kind of gone out of his way to accentuate a lot of those interactions and things, and having Jinbei, like, comment about, like, trying to get on the same page as far as, like, the sort of unconscious teamwork and stuff like that in Wano. And so I think he's done a good job of kind of trying to make that process feel natural. And that this is fun.
It certainly it warms the cockles of the heart.
Yeah.
This clone thing. What do you think about this? I mean, I was ready for some Oda BS, but this is
Yeah. Having read, so I do this. I've been doing this 3 chapter a day reread that I started on January 1st of 2024, and within this week I will be caught up. So I just have read through Egghead, basically, and, like, the number of, like, very weighty sort of, like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening, like, this is so dramatic, developments that are, at least on the face of it, seemingly just, like, completely brushed off by Oda in this chapter alone is kind of staggering. Yeah.
oh, I'm not upset, because it doesn't change the fact that it's not him. There was a very human
Right.
sacrifice in there,
Right.
but it's just funny. Oda, knowing Oda, is just, he can't let go, and it's kind of cute. But this is not the Oda of old, to be fair to him. But it still is, like, just kind of like, you couldn't let that go, huh? Could you, Oda? All right. I'm glad you brought up the point about one of the major, not revelations, but one of the layers peeled back in Elbaf here, being that the society is more, I mean, more based on education, learning, nurturing, rather
Right.
than a warring kind of state.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there might be a significant plot reason for that goes back to this thing that I've really drilled into the ground, about Yggdrasil being destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems that if the giants have reached this point in society, that it's going to take a major event for them to take up arms for any cause.
Right.
Because Oda's clever. He's very clever in this chapter because there's been a big question mark, which is Wano has the samurai, and the samurai are these warriors who could basically, like, if they wanted to take up arms, like, they could give the world government trouble.
Yes.
And he hyped them up like that, and
yes,
they are in truth incredibly capable, incredibly powerful forces, without resulting to kind of power scale discussions. They're a force to be dealt with, and he kind of nerfed that, as he has to, with the revelation that Kaido is there, and Kaido is influencing, holding back, and splitting up the country. But now that they're united, it's kind of no holds barred.
Right.
And they are free to be allies of Luffy whenever need be.
Right.
But the big question was the giants. All the giants were this horrible force in the world, hundreds of years ago, and it's just like, well, they have this whole society, they exist, they have an island, but why aren't they a threat? Why don't we constantly hear about, like, the giants, we're dealing with the giants because they're such a threat? How could he make them less of a threat? And this is the answer. And it's once again, as much as I ribbed on him for the Vegapunk thing, it is an eloquent way of dealing with a very difficult world building problem. Is how do you make it such that your giant, powerful, threatening forces still maintain their power, but are nerfed? And this was the answer. I love it. All that they need is a trigger, something to spark them into action.
And the way that he presents that, the depiction of, like, a society that has moved on from its weapons, or has chosen to focus on, what do they say here about King Harold, trade and reforms and stuff like that. I can see, like, kind of two different angles to this, which I think are both probably valid, which is that, like, I think maybe Oda was inspired by, okay, look at the Vikings, look at this period of history which is, romanticized obviously through various media, but is a period and a culture of great fascination to us in modern times. And then you look at, like, those countries today in Scandinavia, and they're all, like, very high on the human rights and the happiness quotients, and they have these almost like ideal sounding societies and social safety nets and things, and they're not at all like the Viking image of the past. And I kind of wonder if Oda was influenced by thinking about that, of, like, where, who are the Vikings of today, or where have those cultures gone, and then also to some extent, just like juxtaposing that against Japan's current situation, where it's always kind of in the background or in the foreground, but I think now more than ever they have all these conversations about, like, should we or should we not reform the Constitution, specifically to decide if we're going to continue to have self-defense forces, or are we going to have a military, or what is the role of that in this society? And I think that you can see echoes of both of these things in the way that he presents the Elbaf issue.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, it's definitely, one is the necessity for this depiction of the society from a story wise, and then it's okay. Yes. That's the conclusion that he comes to. How does he learn how to depict that, or how is that image informed. And I think it's very astute of you to bring that up. Isn't one of the happiest countries in the world, if not the most, Finland? Is that
Finland, Denmark, Sweden,
Denmark as well?
Norway.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's something that Japan keeps an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a ranking, right? And Japan always about the rankings. But that is something that is prevalent over here. So it's not a rando fact that he wouldn't know. It's something that he very well could be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And as you mentioned as well, Japan with the self-defense forces, do we, don't we? Do we, how far can we go? It's a constant back and forth between what they should and shouldn't be able to do. A lot of the mangaka tend to be more hawkish. And I guess I won't get too deep into that because although some of them do choose to make their ideas public, I don't think Oda really makes all of his ideas public, but it is interesting to see how on one hand they promote the idea of unity, but on the other hand they'll be like, yeah, we support the zero pilots, of World War II, and we celebrate their memory, and we do want a strong self-defense force. We don't want to change Article 9. So it's hashtag complicated.
Yes.
But I do think it's keen of you to notice that this is those kind of real world scenarios are probably informing how he wants to deal with the society. So
and I completely agree too that a big facet of that discussion is for societies that are seeming, in terms of the real world modern society, places which are very secure and they don't have a lot of they have a lot of firearm control. They're considered very peaceful inside within the country, and there's this kind of sense of we've moved past violence as a solution, and oftentimes it's because of some scenario or some situation that means they don't need to defend themselves from hostile forces or something, that's the reason why they don't need to engage in that sort of stuff. But like you were saying, this is a perfect setup to introduce or to throw as a wrench in the works, some kind of existential threat that will force them to reckon with, okay, what if we do need to use violence in some way though? And it does seem like, we're primed for that to become kind of a central tenet of where this story is going to go.
Well, I mean, think about it. This is similar to how I did the end of One Piece, but it's what can you look at that must be by the end of the series? And while there are certainly a lot of possibilities, the one thing that must be by the end of the series is Usopp must have a pirate crew that has a lot of giants in it. It's not only giants, but it has to have a lot of giants in it, which means that a lot of giants need to be convinced to go to piracy. So how is that going to happen? Well, certainly the seeds for that are going to be planted here. It's not so much whether it's going to happen or not. It's the how does it happen? And what would really surprise me is, once again, I'm not trying to plug it, but I did touch upon the top. It's actually one of the end hinge points of the whole discussion of the end of One Piece write-up. But when does Usopp end up with his pirate crew? Does he end up creating a pirate crew before the series ends or after the series ends? When does that occur? Depending on when that happens, you could make the argument that they don't need to be called to arms until after the series is over. But then where's the drama in that? Where's the conflict and resolution? It's just something that occurs. So something bad has to happen. But getting back to the difficulty here in dealing with this society and how to depict it, he's Oda's not just going to take a dump on education.
No,
He's not going to say, education bad, burn the library. No, he cannot do that either. That's not just responsible. That's not just simply, that wouldn't simply be irresponsible as an author for, shonen manga. But it's not satisfying. You wouldn't be a good person or very heroic if you were saying that's the solution. So this library that we see here, depending on its fate, if it suffers an ill fate due to outside forces, that's one thing. But otherwise, it should and must be protected. And it must be important to these people. So there's going to be a balance going forth where education and unity is important to these people, but also the ability to, as you said, protect themselves, Defense Force Japan, maybe. Or right. Will they go venture out beyond that and fight for themselves? Probably. So yeah. I don't know. I'm happy you brought that up in the summary, because it is such a major point here.
Mm-hmm. And like looking too at the way that he depicts the kids, I think it's easy to draw some inferences to, like, and I know that this is very like a sort of an American centric viewpoint, so I don't want to push this too far, but like the seeing the kids as like the Zoomers who don't want to say the word died, so they'll say unalive, and various sort of forms of self-censorship and quote unquote political correctness in the ways that they are enforcing their morals, I think is like, you could look at that as like, is this Oda, like, is he making fun of them and because he looks down on that? And I think it's more of a case of like, he's just kind of playing with that idea and accentuating it a little bit in order to create some funny interactions, and specifically to make like Luffy and Usopp seem like disillusioned with the differences from what they expected and what they get. But I thought that was, it was definitely very thought provoking to see the way that he shows these kids like talking down to Usopp and stuff.
Oda's an interesting dude in that respect. He will tell without any ill will whatsoever. He will say those kinds of words straight to your face, and it's very much like a Luffy thing. Like he has no inner monologue. Obviously, Oda, does he thinks quite a great deal, but it's just nothing stays in. Everything comes out. That is very Luffy about him. And so every thought, ill-conceived or otherwise, does come out, and he doesn't mean anything by it. So I think that's kind of him like questioning, maybe like, well, is it bad to just be honest and open with your thoughts, how you see something? Do you need to be called out on it? I think it is him playing with that idea and maybe ribbing himself a little bit there too. I'm really not sure. I can't say for certain, but just knowing his personality, he is very much the Zoro or the Usopp here, who just say the thing.
Now, is it just me? Am I hearing the drum solo that starts off Van Halen's "Hot for Teacher" with Ripley here?
I have yet another crush.
Yeah,
this has
been
a great
design.
Yeah, the face tattoo is awesome.
Yeah,
reminds me of Assassin's Creed. I wonder if you got the idea from there. I mean, I obviously from Viking design. I mean, it's Assassin's Creed didn't invent the face tattoo for Vikings. But
her hairstyle kind of reminds me of the other Horizon.
Yeah. Aloy.
Yes, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, fun.
I can see why Gavin is so into her.
Which one?
Scoppers.
Scopper Gavin. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I see where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, an interesting counterpoint to the lessons that she's telling the kids is that she immediately is like, well, yeah, but, I'm still of the generation of warriors. So, like, I still think that stuff is cool, and is, like, kind of undoing all of the lessons that the kids are trying to reinforce with the way that she talks and stuff, which is fun.
And then we have the library.
Yeah.
This is right. This is not the one with that reveal that kind of went viral in Japan. So I guess we'll leave that to next chapter.
Next
but
one.
yeah, it's a strange library. It's a Fushigi library.
Yes,
right?
mystery library. Yep.
And I don't know. There's an Elden Ring boss up there, right? The giant owl.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
They're going to start rolling around.
It's a FromSoft boss up there on the tree.
Yeah. Another example, I think, of, slightly different case, but similar to what we were saying about Lilith and Vegapunk earlier, of, ignore the actual truth of what happens to books when they are submerged in water and stuff like that. Like, they're all fine now. Like, everything is good again. We have preserved through sheer pluck and will all the entire library of Ohara, which again, you just kind of have to roll with it.
I often thought of that, and there is a certain point of validity in the thought, in that a number of books would have survived simply by the volume that they created and stacking up on each other. Now, they wouldn't be in great shape unless you have, like, obviously sealed volumes or things like that. But because of the volume that was put in there and the speed at which they were introduced to the water, you would get a number of books that were simply compressed underneath the books on top. Mm-hmm. And those books probably would have survived fairly well. They would probably, large parts of them would probably be legible. You're probably not going to get through the end of the book, and it might be more difficult to, like, read the tops of pages and the bottom of pages, but you're going to get a significant number of books in there that are salvageable, especially when they did it in a time frame that was handled. I forget how long it was exactly. I think maybe they give it with the Vegapunk story.
Yeah, they did say when that was. But I think it was still like a few weeks or a month or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they were immediately taken out. Whoop, it's fine. 5-second rule.
Yeah.
But the point is, they weren't there for years gathering moss, and the water wasn't able to seep down into them and then kind of
disintegrate them.
Yeah, disintegrate them. Right, the paper. So that's why he was good on making that point. But, like, I do agree that a number of them would have been salvageable. The whole, like, oh, it's fine, they're all good. No, that would never be the case. But there is some manga logic to it that I enjoyed.
It's I mean, look, he already has used. We have this strange magic owl, and all the books they turn gigantic. What could that mean? We'll get into that in a second. But he could easily have, if he had chosen to take some extra time to have someone else, to invent a power or a technology or something that this is going to dry out these books, and then they will be just like new. He can easily do that. The world of One Piece is more than large enough to support, a fantastical concept like that. It's just that without that, it does seem a bit silly.
Yeah,
but that's what we got.
Yep.
And it enables, another nice moment for Robin. She's been on a roll here. It's good for her.
I am horrified for that other shoe to drop. I'm not saying that I think Saul sorry. Mm-hmm. Saul isn't in any danger here. But just, as a dramatic story, things can't stay happy forever. So
true.
There has to be some drama here.
Yeah. Speaking of drama, get this very mysterious scene here with Loki and the strange figure whom he is talking to. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this, because like the relationship between Loki and the person he's talking to, like it's a very kind of distinct one, where like in terms of like their tone of voice and stuff, because the person on the other end of this call has a very, like, you know, it's all polite, it's desk form, and you know, is speaking rather politely, whereas Loki is obviously way more rough and tumble, and yet there's this kind of weird like quasi friendship going on between them, and plus bickering and whatnot. So there's a whole lot of stuff to kind of pry apart in this scene.
So before we started the podcast, I was talking about like, oh yeah, you know, when I read these chapters, it was just, you know, kind of year end and things were going on. And when I read them, it was just, some of them were like in parts, and like I had to keep coming back to it. And this one in particular, when I read it in parts, I actually, for the second time in as many months, I went right to the end, and I want to see what was going on at the end. And that took up so much of my time and energy and focus, that I think I might have read this scene with Loki one time, but I don't remember a goddamn thing about it.
Didn't think about it, yeah.
When you brought it up, and especially when you were like, I'm interested in your thoughts on this scene. It's like, shit.
Greg, would you like to share with the class? Yeah, well,
so
and
I've just been rereading it a little bit here, but go ahead if you have any thoughts. I'm gonna reread this,
because the thing is, like, aside from what we already know about Loki being chained up and the reason that he's chained up, aside from that, there's really nothing here that is like solid information or based on solid information that informs something we already know about. Like, we have no reason to expect that he would be talking with someone on the phone. We don't know what they are talking about. You know, like Loki mentions that, you know, what he calls kyofu taiken, which means like you know, terrifying experience that the other person was talking about, and they're making reference to that, but we don't know what this terrifying experience was. We don't know the nature of it. You know, again, we don't know who this person is or why that might be important. We just know that seemingly this relationship is going to be important, because if it's not, then what are we even doing here? What does the scene even mean? So yeah, that's it. I think it's rare for Oda to have, so like he loves his you know, his enigmatic sort of surprise foreshadowing things, where he confronts you with something where you don't know what it means, but it will, you know, it's going to be important somehow. And I feel like this is a really extreme example of that, where there's just so little to go on. But I am sure it will come back into play at some point.
How did you deal with Mosako?
Oh, good question. If you didn't bring that up, I was gonna mention it too. So given what you just said about you know, not getting super in depth into this, I will say this. So Greg, in your experience, you know, reading manga and being in Japan, and you know, being immersed in the language and whatnot, when you see a name like that ends with Cole, which is, you know, it can mean a number of different things. Like, how do you usually parse that? Because for me, you know, when I see someone referring to another character as something Cole like that, at least in a manga, in the context of a manga, it's almost always like either a very forward or familiar or somewhat derogatory like nickname, for something, and a lot of times they're sort of animal related. So that was my first. That's what jumped out to me with
yes. Same. I because I'm not going to go looking this up, and I'm not searching through my adjectives, but what it hits me with instantly is like furry or hairy.
Yes,
and specifically hairy, like mosa mosa, right? Mosa mosa.
You know what I called him? Shaggy.
Hairy. Shaggy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah, pretty much that was my exact thought. Was like, okay, I don't know who he's talking to, but this is clearly like, some people say this is really interesting because the number of different ways that it was translated or handled, not just from like the scanlation or whatever, but there's a bunch of different international simulpub versions that come out. You can go on MangaPlus and you can switch between the languages and see them. And so when there's a very divisive choice like this, people will often go and look and see, okay, what did the French do? What did the Spanish do? And so on and so forth. And it was pretty evenly split. There were several courses where it clearly, I think, and understandably, like I'm not saying this is like a super obvious thing, but some people clearly were like, well, I don't know what to make of this because I don't have any context for this, and I don't know if that's a real name or what. But we're just gonna call it Mosa, which is the word in Japanese. So until we know more, until we know better, we're just gonna call it Mosa. And some people even use like Lord Mosa or something like that, because that's one way that you can translate that kanji. And so I think some language versions did that. Others, in fact, I believe we had him on the show once or twice. The translator for the Brazilian Portuguese version, apparently he had whatever the equivalent of shaggy or hairy was. So he and I were clearly thinking on the exact same lines. And it pretty much comes down to like, well, it doesn't seem like Loki knows very many concrete details about this person, so it's very skeptical that is actually the person's name. And then you look at the snail, and like you said, very hairy, very shaggy, furry, and so it was just kind of draw a direct line from one to the other. Like, oh, that's probably what he calls the snail itself, but that may also. We don't. This is a snow dendemushi, so they may all look like that, or maybe that reflects the look of the person on the other line. But that's all Loki has to go on. So that was my reasoning for calling him Shaggy.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting
So
choice.
that'll be fun. It'll be fun to see like what the answer ends up being, if I was right, or if Oda could even throw a curveball and have it be like, yeah, Loki didn't know, but what if his name actually does start with Mosa something, just as kind of like a gag. You never know. But yeah.
What do you think about this Okina koi wa oyame kudasai? Does This is going to reveal my own inexperience here, but does that seem at all? And I don't think so, because there are no other hints to that end. But does that seem any more or less feminine to you?
Okay, so for everyone else, what Greg is referring to is the very last thing that the person on the phone says when Loki is like, oh, don't talk about kindness, like don't ever refer to me as being kind or soft or anything like that. And then the last thing that the person says is, please don't shout, please don't raise your voice like that. And I don't know. I mean, I think I wouldn't say that it struck me as particularly feminine, but it is
so subservient. It is so polite.
The politeness level is in a way that is very gender neutral in Japanese.
It's chapter 2 Kobe.
Yeah. It's there's a level of politeness in Japanese, like business polite maybe, that if you use it in like non-formal situations, I think that there is a slight tendency to see it as feminine, simply because if you're not in a business setting, like if any are a dude, like there are many more like masculine forms of speech that that you would probably revert to instead. So I get I understand where you're coming from, where it's like, yeah, it does kind of sound a bit feminine, but I can't say that this definitely is feminine.
Steven, you know what?
What's up?
You know what? I'm going to say it's Kobe. I'm going to say it's Kobe. I'm just reading it in Kobe's voice. And it's super, even like, sokomade nozondemasen. It's super
yeah.
Kobe.
Wow.
And like, even though like, if, with your experience, like what it's what happened at the Pirate Island.
Yes.
And that's
true.
That's why Furue got tomarimasen. Yeah.
Ooh, oh boy.
That.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So he's collaborating. So this kind of confirms that, yeah, Loki might be a villain on the island. Did we talk about this last time? It's like he might be a threat on the island, but something more threatening than Loki must appear. Because this dude is,
yes.
he's not even going to be Katakuri level. Like he is threatening and he can be threatening, but there is that side of this is Loki, so he is going to be loyal to something. And Oda's also doing a good job setting him up as being this evil thing from the start, and he killed his father.
Right.
There's probably another side to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. It's, I don't know. Just reading it in Kobe voice, that seems almost solidified.
That's really, mind. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to unhear that now. That's fascinating. Good stuff.
See what happens when I think about a fucking scene for more than 2 seconds?
Yeah. Here come all the angles that you can uncover. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for taking me through that. That was a fun journey. All right.
Yeah. And lastly, the teleportation. Mysterious figures.
Let's see. Is this yeah, okay, no, not this chapter. Good. Okay. Sorry, I was just confirming whether there was a certain scene during this chapter. And yes, this is the last thing. We just see that there's some sort of celebration going on, right?
Right. They're starting in the village.
And this scene occurs. I don't, yeah. Did we talk about this last time? I feel like we talked about this.
Which part specifically?
These two figures and who they may or may not be. Oh, okay.
Well, we hadn't seen them appear until this chapter.
Oh, okay. All right.
I noticed that you brought up, so obviously, there's been a ton of discussion about this guy. You look at it, it's like, oh, that's Shanks, but then, well, he's always shown at this particular angle, so you don't necessarily see Shanks' scar, and so that obviously pushes the direction in a certain place. And you brought up something. I saw you tweeted this or something, and it was an angle that I hadn't thought about for a while because the scene was like a year or two ago. But it was that throwaway line from Garling on God Valley, right? Where he says, watch me, kids. Yep. And it was always like, is he just talking to like random other people, like the crowd of onlookers? Like, is he just belittling them? But no, it would make a lot more sense if there are actually, multiple siblings here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This goes back some time where I even have a YouTube video of it. It's pretty groovy. Where this figure is seen, who is assumed to be Shanks. He's talking to the elders.
Right.
And even at that time I was like, what if Shanks is a celestial dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had film Red, which seemed to further open the door for that. And I do believe there are places online where I did say, what if, this is not Shanks that we're seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Because we are not seeing that side of the face. Once again, we're seeing that side of the face.
Mm-hmm.
And if you compare a number of the shadowy characters that were drawn in the series,
Mm-hmm.
and in a number of, like, this is what these people look like what was it, the Knights of God or something like that?
Yeah, the Holy Knights is what I called them.
The Holy Knights, yeah. If you look at them, there's a figure who's holding a very specific looking sword that looks similar to the kind of famous, like, Who Will Get the One Piece collection of characters.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shadow figure that is in the bottom center-ish area, and he's holding a sword very similar to the sword that is in the Holy Knights, one of the Holy Knights' hands, and also has a jawline and a nose line that is similar to this character. Now, Oda can do whatever he wants in the shadows. He has full free reign over that. He can change however he wants. But he does also like to tip his hat when he can, so you can catch it on multiple read-throughs. I would be shocked if that's Shanks. Color me surprised if that's Shanks. What I'm mostly interested in right now is, and I did not bother to check this in the subsequent chapter, is if the female-looking character, if that's not just shade, being used, a tone, just being used in her hair, but if her hair is naturally toned or not. If her hair is naturally given tone, dead giveaway.
Yeah, and you can see...
Stephen knows what I'm inferring there, but...
Yes, you can see in this panel of the Shanks alike that he does have, it's kind of hard to make out, but he does have these sort of highlights that Oda likes to draw where like the hair uses the gray tone to symbolize the red color, but then there's like little white strips that are cut out of it to show like the light shining off of it. And I don't think we get those highlights with the female character, but yeah, I guess I took
she needs to be seen in natural light.
Yeah, my inclination, at least looking at this one, we'll get to the next chapter and I'll take a closer look there too, is that she looked like she had lighter hair, going by the way that Oda usually does the screen tones. And
they certainly don't share similar eye shapes. So there's that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wonder if Shanks has not only a brother, but a sister.
Yes. And then on top of that, of course, there's the question of, well, if these guys are using the summoning circle like the five elders did, then what does that say? Is that just anyone under Imu's command gets those privileges to teleport around as they see fit? Because of course I was sort of under the assumption that was a special thing for the five of them. So this took me by considerable surprise to see this show up here.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Oda can kind of do what he wants. And I'm sure he's fine showing this now because it's the end of the series. But like that's an insane ability. Like even Door was crazy, right?
Yeah, right.
But like this is just and Wapu Wapu as well. That's pretty cray as well.
Yeah.
But this is just like super OP. I don't even know if there's a limit on it in terms of distance.
Yeah.
But yeah, 34.
Okay. I'll do it for 34. And then we're on to the most recent chapter, 1135. Bibelo the Owl has the ability to grow inanimate matter to make the books huge. Colin, the son of Ripley and a human father, goes against the grain of his generation and admires Luffy. At the castle, the bandaged woman uses a mysterious power to force a giant guard to prostrate himself. Back at the village, the feast is finally ready to begin with a friend's cups toast, and Beard Hill Jarl, oldest of the giants, makes his appearance. Not nearly as crazy of a chapter this time.
Well, here's what is crazy about this chapter to me. This was like, oh my God, what is this arc going to be?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it hit you the same way. What's happening in reverse in this chapter? And this is why I was kind of like, I needed to check myself at the end of the last chapter, because I was like, oh, right, yeah, it hadn't happened quite yet. They're having
the feast?
Yes. They're having a feast at the start of the arc. That's not a good sign for how this is going to end up.
Yeah, good point.
Again, another feather in the cap for the island is going to be destroyed. Theory of mine.
Yikes.
With again, if I'm leaving you in the dark, I'm sorry. I'm just assuming that you're all longtime listeners, but Oda will do parties at the end of an arc, right? That's like the scene that he loves to draw. He enjoys drawing them. They're one of his favorite parts. That's how to cap out an arc. But if there is a great sadness, if there is a great loss of life in a chapter, in a saga, then the celebration is somewhat subdued, or it is muted in a certain, usually skillful way. A way we saw this previously, just recent example, quote unquote recent, was Whole Cake Island. Whole Cake Island ended in a loss for the Straw Hats. They got away, which is a major win. Nobody else could have accomplished that. It's incredible. But overall, it was a loss to an emperor. There was no party there because there was loss of life. As far as we knew when we ended that arc, Pedro was dead. I forget anybody else.
Pound. Supposedly, yeah.
Peckham's was depicted as being retained in a violent way, right?
True,
so
sure.
it was portrayed as if he had met his end, but we all know that he's probably quite well. Maybe Pedro too, but we don't really know yet. But it doesn't matter because Oda's depicting it as if he did, which is important. There is no Utage there. There's no party there. Here, this was another thing that was in my end of One Piece. Is like how are they going to do the Valhalla style celebration? Like, can they do that at the end of this arc? I don't think so, because they need to be slingshotted into whatever the final arc is from here.
Yeah.
And so I was like, how is he going to do that? So are they going to do the Valhalla thing later or what? And as it turns out, like, I wasn't correct, quote unquote, in saying that it'll happen later, but it happens first, which is really bad omen for how this is all going to end. Things are not going to be happy for these people in a very short amount of time.
Quite possible, yeah.
Which leads me to the question, Stephen. Do you think this is going to be a Zoarc?
A real quick one?
Yeah. I thought we were in line for Egghead being that. And Egghead is a quote-unquote shorter arc, but due to actual time restraints and the manga being spread out as it was in multiple breaks, it ended up being considerably longer.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty meaty. It's still a number of volumes.
Yes.
But about this one, though, I'm not sure anymore.
I think he could certainly make the action that happens here in what is it, the Sun World or whatever, the middle level here. I think that he could make this part particularly brief in the way that you're mentioning. I just feel like the location of Elbaf is too important. Like I could see all of the action happening either down in the ice at the bottom or going up to the top of the tree to see the celestial whirl or whatever, and have all of the action happen there. I can't see them just leaving Elbaf entirely. I just feel like there's too much that Oda can do and wants to do in this setting.
No, they're definitely not going to leave quickly.
Yeah.
But what if he's depicting this as, you know, some great setup for a long and involved arc? But what if things happen very quickly? I'm not subscribing to it, but since he has done this, he technically could do it that way if he wanted to. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious. What do you think? Because who can be the villain? Because Loki is. I'm already dedicated. I'm going to put my foot in the ground. Loki is cooperating to a certain degree with a heroic character, and will probably be, by the end of this, you know, he'll have some heroic actions that are mixed with violent ones as well. I think he can be a villain for a good chunk of this arc if he needs to be. But to threaten the entire island itself, I don't know. Can he do that? See, that's interesting. Yeah. He could dramatically spend a lengthy arc with Loki being the villain, but coming around at the end. Mm-hmm.
I think it's more likely that we will get a true villain.
Okay. You've mentioned this before, I think. Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's too many like random characters that we have not really gotten a full view of in the series, and maybe, you know, I don't know where Rox comes back into things, like if he's going to be like a primary character in terms of you know, coming back around like movie villain style of like, haha, you thought I was out, but I'm back in, baby. Or if he ends up having more of like a Rayleigh type role where it's like, yeah, my story's told, like, you know, but here's the deal, or, you know, gives you a bunch of exposition or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's either that or I don't know. Maybe this just goes straight into the, you know, the top of the Celestial Dragons stuff. Like maybe Garling ends up being the main villain, and it's not so much about like what are his plans for Elbaf as much as like how, you know, this guy is a menace to the overall quest, and you know, he has to take his place in the story and be dealt with in some way. I don't know. But
either way, no matter how it pans out, this event here was very interesting for me. I was super happy to see this because it was unexpected, but it has major repercussions for the entire narrative of the arc. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah,
I think the only thing we know that we need to come out of here is again, like, go with what you must know, right? Is Usopp must do something remarkable here. That is a given. So whatever happens, however long it is, there must be reasonable length of dramatic time for Usopp to do something incredible here that inspires the giants. So that's our given for the arc at this point. No matter opinions aside.
Yeah. I love. I don't know if you saw these going around the internet, but just looking at the title page here. So Oda did a thing which is a very, like, this is a pro mangaka move where he has two characters, you know, Tama and Hold'em are on the cover, and the way that they're situated, like, Tama is like, she's kicking him in the face, yes, but from our perspective, her body is overlapping his, and so he does the pro mangaka strat of like, she's drawn and then there's a blank space around her outline, and there's like a little sort of shading effect over the details of his body behind her, just to make it more legible, so you can easily see that these are two characters. And what that means is that it is incredibly easy to just trace around her drawing. Like her outline is not touching any other lines, so you can just draw a perfect line right around her, and then insert that image into whatever other image manga collages you want to. So I've seen so many like photoshops of Tama, kicking the villains in various other scenes from One Piece. It's been a lot of fun.
It's cute.
Really, really good stuff. Yeah.
I bet there are a couple out there of her kicking me.
Well, all right. We'll put it out there. Let's see what we get.
Oh boy.
I did not spot any. I'm guessing you did not spend any extra time with this, but I did not spot any. References to wrestler names in the text in the book that Chopper and Bonnie are sitting in. Maybe in another era, we would have been able to see a bunch of stuff that the one assistant or another had put in there.
He's cracked down on that pretty hard.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody wrote something in here that means something. To them. I could go over it, but I'm not going to. Quite all right. I'm done with that period of enjoyment. Maybe someday. I will admit though, I did look for a second. I was just like, no, nothing. And you look at the detail in the books in the library, and there's so much less than there was back in the day when it was just kind of free reign.
Yeah.
Where there were clear letters on the books and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, not so much here. Find out the owl has a devil fruit.
He has a devil fruit. It must be yeah. I wonder what it's called.
It's the cum fruit. No, it's. Yeah, I had this as grow fruit, which like belatedly. Actually, I still haven't checked. I was like, I'm not actually sure if there is another fruit that was translated that way, because it is ikusei fukuro. Ikusei means to raise something the way that you would like raise a child or raise crops or something like that. And so the Japanese term is iku iku no mi, which is it's kind of it's like a double entendre staring you in the face on the Japanese side.
It's similar in a way to Shinobu's fruit, is it not? Because she was able to rot things, right?
Yes.
And in doing that, oh man, this still bugs me. But in doing that, she was able to grow Momonosuke, right?
Right.
She was able to grow his body.
She was ripening him. Yeah.
She was ripening him.
Yeah.
Which is such a pull, because you'd think if you took a child and you just were like, I'm going to use the what is it? What was her fruit?
I think it was the ripe fruit. I think.
But I'm sorry, I'm thinking in Japanese.
The Japanese, was it juku?
Was it juku? Jukuse sase?
Yeah.
I thought it was like the rot. Was it not? Did I get that wrong? If I did, that makes way more sense. Because she was a jukujo? Was that the thing?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was assuming. All right. On air.
Don't Google jukujo.
Juku no mi.
Children.
Yeah.
Juku. All right.
Yeah, you're likely to
For some reason, I had it in my mind that it was the what is it? Kusaru? Kusa.
Yeah. No,
juku. Okay, that sounds better. She could ripen it. Okay.
Right.
I thought, because if she did that to some child, he would just like Indiana Jones into this pile of bones and flesh.
Yeah, I guess she can moderate the effects. Yeah.
It's a shame that there are two that are somewhat similar, though. Very similar. Ikuse
Yeah.
is raising. I mean, they can both technically do the same thing. But
Yeah.
there was a limit on this, which was
Only
what was it?
organic
Mukibutsu.
matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Organic or
Now,
inanimate. I might change it to inanimate. I used organic because that is mukibutsu. The word in Japanese is organic. Like that you'll see that word on, food products and stuff like that. So
okay.
which I don't think scientifically actually fits. Like the books are made out of, paper and stuff that was formerly living. So I think that by some definitions of the word, that would count as organic matter. But you get the idea, which is that like it won't work on living people and creatures and stuff.
Which is a shame, because I'm going to skip ahead a little bit if you don't mind.
Sure.
But we do find out that Ripley has
Right.
has a quote unquote husband.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're living in sin, so to speak.
Yes.
So Colin is a bastard. No, not at all. No, but she has someone who she fancies and fancies her, and they have a child, and that someone who fancies her is a human.
Human. Yeah.
And this is a shame that this owl's fruit only works on inanimate objects, because that would have been a really easy explanation for how that's possible.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Forgive me for this comment, but let's just say he has very, very powerful swimmers.
Salmon, I tell you.
Yeah. 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 Who knows?
Yeah. Oda.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Let's see. Our Straw Hats get every Straw Hat gets their Viking gear.
Yes.
What if the villain is Road? What if the villain is Road and he's just like, he gets off the cross and he's just like, you know what? Fuck all you, and he just turns into a giant.
Yeah. No, it is funny. It feels appropriate that, like, yes, some of these Straw Hats were put in those clothes by Rodo, and then Gerd as as like the angel to his devil outfits the rest of them in her little dolly clothes that she has made for them.
I did see some fan art drawn in Oda's style of like what people were expecting the Viking Straw Hats to look like, and I have to wonder how close some of them were, because there's some very skilled artists out there who did some nice depictions, and I wonder how close to the mark they were.
Yeah, I love that. You can just tell that this is like a dream come true for Gerd, given her fascination. So it's like her it's like the little they're not amiibos, they're amigos to her.
Nakamos?
I don't know. I don't know if we've crossed that barrier yet. That boundary. See if they fight side by side. Yeah.
Okay.
Going back a few pages to the continued misadventures. I guess following up on what you said about Colin. I guess we have a little battle of the bastards here. We don't know that. We don't know what Dragon's marital status is, but
oh, good one. Good ones.
yeah.
Ipontoraita. All right. I do like that. It's kind of cute that Luffy holds back here. He's not like
right.
Well, quote unquote holds back. I mean, it's fucking Gear 3rd. He busted a fucking wall against Lucci that way. Back in Ennius Lobby. But the point is, like, it's still like a kid, and he's not like instantly like death to the child. It's kind of good. I like it.
Yeah, and then he has the little atatenemon. Like I didn't even hit him at the end, so it was on purpose. Like he wasn't trying to hit the kid.
Yeah. And big smile too. So
yeah. Yeah, it's a nice example of Luffy kind of doing the big brother thing here.
I guess he's our stand-in for Bike, the Viking.
Yes, our little Vicky Viking here. Yeah. And then we get the news that he is the son of Ripley, aforementioned, which is nice because like I always just assumed that the Makino in the bar, the giant waitress or mama or who, however you refer to her, was his mom previously, but yeah, now we find out that he was bringing his mom lunch.
Oh,
which is nice.
Oh yeah. The okay. You're saying here in Elbaf the equivalent to Makino in the bar. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I inadvertently assumed that as well. Yeah, but
yeah, I was confused by that line where he was like, oh, I'm going to go take the lunch and then up to Ripley, and we didn't know, it was just a name, Ripley, that we didn't know about, and I remember being confused by that scene initially.
These Vikings, huh? I'm gonna give that a shot someday. Call my mom Gail.
Yeah.
So yeah, I alluded to this. Well, I didn't allude to it. I just called it out earlier in our conversation. But who do you think the father is?
Man, okay. So the first thought that occurred to me, just first thing that popped into my head, regardless of like whether it makes sense or not, was Rayleigh, just because he seems like a guy who has common law wives in multiple area codes, so to speak. But I do think it's going to be something much closer to home in this arc.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, honestly, given all of the foreshadowing, if you will, I do feel like the most likely culprit is whoever the guy with the casa hat is. Just because we know he's lurking around.
Yeah. That seems to be.
Yeah.
I was joking, earlier, Gavin. I
Right.
do think there is room to more than enough room to believe at this point that is indeed him. I mean, the hair is a big giveaway because the hair is the pattern, the style of the hair is pretty consistently been drawn that way, whether it's been short or long. And it gives off a similar style. Plus, we are getting to the end game, and that character has not shown up. And the more that he doesn't show up, the more that you know that he is probably going to play a role in some point.
Yeah.
Does not need to be a large role. It may or may not. I don't know. But a lot of people are, banking on the fact that it must be a large role. No, there is nothing that says it needs to be a large role.
Right.
But because it could be anybody. It could be Seagull, for all we care. Seagull could have the large role. But the more that Oda avoids the character and doesn't bring it in, the more you know that he is actually holding him for something,
right,
in the story. And that hairstyle seems similar. Drawing him with the casa hat is a major Oda move because it doesn't seem like something he would normally be associated with, because he has been drawn as more of a quote unquote Western clothed character.
Right.
So that would remove him from that kind of style. So it's a nice red herring.
Yeah.
Yep. The only issue really at this point is the coloring, and we've discussed this to death, too much that it's boring for me at this point. But the color version of the figure, the casa wearing figure, exchanging Sakazuki with Crocus, had yellow hair. Had like blondish hair. And as far as we know, the character we know as Gavin had
dark hair. Right?
Dark hair.
Yeah.
Dark hair, yeah. At least probably black hair. So what's the issue? Did the color version mess up? Yes, it's entirely possible that it did.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I will say is that it's fucking not Shiki. I see that
Yeah.
going around, and I don't have any ill will on Shiki fans. I don't wish them any poor ill will. It's just like, don't look for Shiki to be a major character in the story. It's very possible for him to play a cameo role at some point, but I don't ever see him interacting with the Straw Hats because of Strong World.
Yeah.
I think about the closest I can see a character interacting with the Straw Hats is like some scene at the end of the story where Uta and Luffy are like eating chicken together or doing something, or like having a non-verbal interaction.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the closest we could get to that.
I think Oda never wants to write himself into a situation where characters are interacting in any way where you might be tempted to say, why aren't they talking about the stuff that happened in the movie? You know, he does not want to mix that continuity together in any way.
No, he does not.
And
But then why is Uta in there? Why is Shiki in there? They're absolutely in there. They exist in that world. But as Stephen just summarized, he doesn't want there to be any reason for you to have to go see the movie to understand this story.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And back to these possible siblings, eh? And more.
Little thing one, little thing two.
Yeah. Yeah, is that the Dr. Seuss
Yes.
thing number one, thing number two?
Yes.
It's pretty good. Yeah. More what do you make of this power? Because like I feel like, you know, when you see the effect of like, okay, the giant gets pulled to the ground, like it kind of, you know, it just looks like a Sith power, right? Like using the Force on him to drag him down. But then there's the panel with the do 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 do, and it looks like gunshots or like firecracker pops or something like that. And like, I'm like, what does that mean? Like, how does that fit into this? That's what has me curious.
It looks like to me. I mean, it could it be a devil fruit? Yes, 100%, no question. In which case, all bets are off, right? But it would also be interesting to me if this individual has
some kind of weapon,
utilized a kind of rokshiki form of using hockey. Specifically, what do you call it? What's Haoshoka? Conqueror's hockey, right?
Conqueror's hockey, yeah.
Yeah. Are those little pieces of hockey that are being fired off like that? And we hear like Baki, right? And it's not the typical like the black lightning kind of strike, but it is the sound of something breaking. I think. But Boki, I'm sorry, but not Baki. That's the Baki was the
Well, no, and
page.
In the other panel where his face is getting pressed, you do see there's Boki and then Baki, so it's, you know, different cracking sounds.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I do wonder, because it looks like she just broke a bunch of his bones, and he just is like, ow.
Right.
But if it's a devil fruit, who knows, man? It could be anything.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The only reason I would say I don't think it's a devil fruit is because there doesn't seem to be a clear example of something fushigi or mysterious or magical going on here. It's just the closest thing we have are these little action in the do page as you described.
Yes, yeah.
That's really the only hint of anything that we have.
Right.
And usually he'll do something clever, like if it's a magnet thing, he'll show something being pulled or something being wrenched from a position, or as he did with Crocodile, he did the flower being dehydrated or the person zombified. There doesn't seem to be some iconic hint here. It's just the is the closest we have to anything, which makes me just think it's hockey being utilized in an interesting way, but in a highly skilled way. But we shall see, right? Do you have any ideas?
No, I didn't have any specific ideas, although I do like that concept, especially if make a little logical inference here, or a little logical leap. If these two are members of the Holy Knights, who are clearly presented as a menacing force that is above and beyond the Navy in terms of their privileges and whatnot, and how close they are to Emu, it would make sense to set up, like, I can see the logic in kind of having another Ryuo situation where it's like, oh, here's another name for another application of hockey, another special kind of hockey that a new class of characters is able to use, that puts you through that familiar sort of shonen manga cycle of, like, here's a new menace, here's a new weapon that the bad guys have that we have to deal with or learn from, or learn to operate in some way. So I could absolutely see that being the case.
Man, I really love this Hamon thing, but I'm out of ideas for it. What can I do?
Yeah.
I guess I'll give this stance thing a try.
Yeah,
See what happens.
Exactly.
Good old JoJo.
Yep.
And then I already talked about the Utage at the start of things here, but the party.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the Stanson.
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah.
It's cute.
And the fact that they had to point out that the Straw Hats rescued him, but it was kind of incidental. They were only there ruining the auction for a different person that they were helping, and you get the fun little background shot of him punching Charlos. It's good stuff. I saw somebody or some people were taking issue with the way that it's drawn here, that Luffy is like he's doing a Gum Gum Bullet, right? His arm is elongated, but in the scene when he punches Charlos, like he's standing right next to him, like it's like a regular punch. Yeah. Which I don't have a problem with, but it is. I guess in a sense, this is not true to the original events.
And then we get the greatest reveal. This is one of the dumbest things Oda has ever done, and I love it.
Yeah, this is the opposite of a cliffhanger.
And the best is the line is, this is such an Oda thing, is that, don't worry, thank God my helmet saved me.
Yeah, it's going right through
your helmet. Oh God.
Yeah.
But there. Okay, question time from Greg. I don't remember him being this large. He's enormous. Do giants?
Are they like trees? Do they keep growing?
Did they keep growing? But it has not been that long in terms of a giant's age, right? It's been like what, like 60 something, 50 something years
since Big Mom's flashback.
Yeah.
So she was was she 6 in that flashback?
I guess actually
like
he does have an age here. If he had an age when he showed up, and which I'm assuming he did because it's such a specific age, I guess you could do the math. But like it's 50 something years, I think, on the higher end. And like, I don't remember him being that big.
He may not have been like in perspective with other giants, because all I remember seeing, at least, I'm not looking at the volumes from Whole Cake Island right now, but all I remember was it was him and Yorl, like his buddy, the two guys. They were always together, and of course they're the same size. So
Yorl,
yeah.
True. They were always around the same size, but I'm looking for something where they were in perspective to each other or to their surroundings.
Yeah.
And I do not remember seeing anything like that.
Well,
let's see.
yeah,
Okay, there they are. They're big. Oh yeah, they're pretty massive.
Okay.
Now it's one of those things where like now that you see it with this perspective, there's a shot of them from the back that's not as impressive. But if you consider the perspective with Mom and the fact that they do seem to be looming over the buildings that are in the background, that is entirely possible. Yeah.
Well,
it
really helps.
Here? 344.
There you
Wait,
go.
no, that's Yodoru.
But aren't they the same age or
345? 345 and 344.
344. Okay. So it's been 63 years for Yaruru.
Did I say that at the start? I think I said 63 to start, did I? I said 60 something. Oh well. Anyway, how is that? Yeah, and then when they have the scene with Mom, there's really nothing. No, their hands are there. Oh, they're definitely in perspective with Mom in the next chapter. Okay, this is really boring for our readers, sorry, or our listeners, sorry. But it's really fascinating for me. In chapter 867, the Happy Birthday chapter, you can clearly see them in a decent perspective with Mom. And like she's a big child, she's massive, but like they're not that big compared to her, because in this scene, he's freaking dwarfing Brogy.
Yeah, that's the thing that makes it so impressive, because we actually have a character that we have seen the Straw Hats interacting with, and he's like twice as tall as him.
Yeah, I'm gonna say giants grow with age, and they hit a growth spurt in the past 63 years. It's got to be the only explanation, because he is absolutely massive here.
Yeah,
and no, there's no way in the Happy Birthday chapter that they are that big. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Sorry to kind of flip through the book while I'm talking here, but we did reach an interesting conclusion. So
there you go. Yeah. So like I said, really no I mean, the cliffhanger is really like, what's the deal with the folks at the castle, and that's several pages earlier. The party stuff is just kind of like, hey, let's hang out and drink, have fun. Which is,
but that is our chapter.
And that's where we will leave it off. We do definitely have a bunch of questions on Patreon, so let's move on to the SGS segment.
I forgot entirely about that. I forgot why this is called the SGS.
Here we go. We'll find out. And here we are with our SGS segment, where we take your thoughts and questions and comments. Most primarily, I think these ones are going to be from our Discord. We did spend a lot of time talking about the manga this week, but we have several questions on our Discord. But you can submit on Twitter or Blue Sky as well. I will check those using the hashtag SGSSensei. In this case, we're going to go to our Patreon SGS channel, where folks who are subscribed to the Patreon can put their questions in, and I will make sure to read them here. So we will start with Blandon, who says, concerning Luffy needing to awaken his fruit just to reach his Nika form. If the devil fruits were created by people's wishes, then could the elders' effort to hide the existence of the Nika fruit, their wish, actually affect the fruit? By making the whole world forget about the Nika fruit and believe in the Gum Gum fruit, the fruit became the Gum Gum, so it took Luffy a lot of effort and a wish for freedom to awaken the fruit back to its full form. What do you think about that?
A couple of years ago, I might have outright dismissed it. I mean, obviously, it's a difficult question to even pose a number of years ago because we didn't have this information about devil fruits. But all of that aside, logistics, just because it sounds like such a convoluted idea for a rather simple solution. But I must admit, at this point in the series where I am so dissatisfied with Oda's explanation for why Luffy's fruit was this way, that I will grasp at anything that can make it make sense. Because I'm very dissatisfied with everything surrounding the awakening of the fruit and why this zone fruit doesn't work like any other zone fruit. I mean, we have special paramecia. I'm sorry, but even the special paramecia they're cutting it kind of close to the BS line.
Yeah, I agree.
But that said,
I guess
it does sound a little bit too much for me. It sounds a few too many layers.
I think it's interesting as a concept. My thing is I still am not. I'm like not 100% sold on that speech from Vegapunk being, I guess, like literal canon in terms of how it works. Maybe it's just the way that he delivered it, but it does feel like a somewhat metaphysical explanation for something that probably has a more specific sourcing in the story that we will likely find out later. So I don't know, I hesitate to apply that concept of like wishing stuff to to alternate explanations like this, like the idea that if the fruit exists because someone makes a wish, that wishing against something will cancel it out. That seems like that's a pretty big stretch, I think.
Yeah. It's really hard because it's difficult to know what can or cannot be magic at this point. There are some things going on in the series at this point that just seem like magic.
Right.
But does this go the DCU or the Marvel route where it's like, well, magic is really just super science.
Superpowers, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I've discussed this before on the podcast at least, but like there's a big chicken and the egg question right now is which came first? These devil fruit powers or powers that existed naturally that people wanted? And long ago, I had the idea of a great war that occurred on the moon because of devil fruits, and devil fruits were kind of like created as a weapon. They were too powerful for the people of the moon. That civilization went extinct, and they fled to the earth. Some version of that seems to be true. Whether it involves devil fruits and overproduction of devil fruits can't be sure yet. But they did desert the moon. That much is pretty much given from the evidence we have that NL found.
Yes.
But did whatever these powers were and however the devil fruits were they created to mimic something? And these dreams, this is where I'm pulling it back to dreams, but the dreams or the wishes were, we want to accomplish something or we want to be like something. So let's figure out a way to manufacture that. I don't think they were physical manifestations of wishes.
Yeah. Okay. I am much more willing to go with you on that explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
But if that's the case, which came first? Were the devil fruits created, and did those create the myths of the gods? Or were quote unquote normal, powerless people envious of the Lunarians and the larger races like the Buccaneers? And we have no time frame for these, right? So we can't know for sure. But were they envious of like the ability to have fire in their body and to be basically invincible? Did they want those abilities, see them, deify them, and then try to replicate them through devil fruits? In other words, did the devil fruits come about as a result of seeing these super, quote unquote, humans, so these super people, these super races? We don't know yet, so we can't really. So we can theorize until the cows come home, but we cannot know yet which came first, and therefore I tend to think that the most dramatic at this point would be there was normal people on Earth. The Lunarians, for whatever reason, had to come to Earth. And when they did, there was some difference in power. And the fruits were created as a desire to replicate those powers in normal people and to give the power of the gods to normal people, quote unquote gods.
I like it.
Which gets another layer. If Imu, or whatever Imu's power is, or these beings that are so hellish looking, the Gorosei forms, are they indeed aliens? And if they are aliens, and that's another. I mean, already the Lunarians could be aliens, right?
Considered aliens, yeah.
Yes. But are these from even further off? We know that they exist in the world, so like, is that what these are? I don't know. We'll find out. But sorry, that's a really convoluted answer. But
no, it's fun. It's interesting to go over, and at some point we will get some answers on this stuff, and then whatever explanations we have will no longer be valid to talk about. So we might as well enjoy it now. Our next comment comes from King Doji. It says, "Hello, very special guests. I have now read through the end of One Piece, and I have some thoughts specifically regarding Part 4 with the discussions of Sho and Hen, which you go through. About the chapters and all the divisions of story. Has Shueisha considered grouping the parts of story based on the characters themselves? For example, Punk Hazard and Dressrosa could be the Doflamingo arc, Doflamingo Hen, similar to how Greg had it in his division of the series. Enies Lobby and Water 7, similarly, the Robin arc, Robin Hen. Of course, those two arcs are linked together, tied, if you will, and have been discussed at length in online forums. Just search One Piece Robin Hen tie, and you'll find it. Jokes aside, very interesting. Very interesting and completely useless. Hits it right on the head, as I have no idea what to do now with this information. Fantastic read. Thank you both so much for all the work on the series."
Oh, thank you. When he phrases, I read the end of One Piece. I was like, wait, King Doji wasn't caught up with One Piece? I was like, but they're always asking questions. Okay.
This is your thing, Greg.
This is my thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a good question. I don't think that is an option for anything beyond the earlier, because like we tend to say like the earlier arcs, like the Krieg arc, the Arlong arc, the Kuro arc, right? And that's just something we tend to do, or at least I do, or we did in my circle of fandom.
I think the on the Japanese side, maybe like referring to them as by the villain's name is maybe more common. I do feel like most of the arcs in English, we refer to them by the place, like Syrup Village or Baratier, Arlong Park, or Arlong that is. But I know some people in Japan, they'll call it like the Nami arc, right? Nami-hen, instead of the Arlong arc.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I mean, I think that was all just a setup for that joke, but it's an interesting topic regardless.
Well, and here's why I don't, even if it was a joke, here's why I don't think it would be valid. Is for the early parts of the series, there are no long dedicated spoilers that you have. It's like every character who shows up is new. However, if you have an arc that's called the Robin arc that you know about and you've heard about after the character Nico Robin is revealed, kind of hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if something is going to come to light about Robin in this arc. Yeah. Yeah. We have another comment from Blandin, which I will read because this is a very good question. If Loki's transponder snail, his partner there, is voice activated, which that's kind of what, let's see, what was it called? Bolkan Onse Ninshiki type, or voice recognizing type, which I assumed meant that was how it could like turn on if Loki can't touch it because his arms are tied up.
Right.
So if it is voice activated, does that mean Shaggy or Mosako heard Loki and Luffy's deal?
Well, I mean, if voice activated, does it need a command? Because if you
That's a
say
good question. Right.
if you say "Hey Siri," it'll react.
Yeah.
But if you don't,
yeah.
But if you say "I want to microwave potatoes," it will say, "I couldn't hear that. Please repeat."
Right.
In other words, yes. If it's a crappy transponder snail, then yes, it probably heard the conversation. If they haven't worked out their AI, what would they call AI in the One Piece world? Because it's not like God. It's not genetics, right? It would be like what would be a good name for it?
He would have some funny.
He would have some absurd, like old-timey sounding name for it, right?
Right. Some kanji thing.
Electric brain. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. The cyber brain. All right. SMP has another follow-up about Shaggy. Okay, so we did talk about this somewhat, but let's see what SNP's commentary is. Hello, Stephen, Greg, and Simba. So who do you think Shaggy or Mosako are? One of the members in the Discord said Shaggy reminds them of Shirahoshi, since Roger said he thought that she would be hairy. She would be born hairy when he was making fun of Neptune. And it seems intriguing to me, unless the way Shaggy talks is more masculine than Shirahoshi. So I will take a look at some facts. Two people who were basically locked in one place for a long time could have found some shared interests to talk about, to be friends, or explain why they have never seen each other because both of them can't leave. Roger thought Shirahoshi could be hairy, so it would be Oda's nod to his old joke. The trauma experience could be referred to what happened recently on Mary Joa. That's a good point. The Sea King talked about two sovereigns that will meet one day in Oden's flashback. Could it mean Loki and Shirahoshi? One was supposed to be the king of Elbaf, while the other is princess of Fishman Island. The highest chance of these is about Luffy and Shirahoshi, because the line, "Our sovereign will soon be born and another in a distant sea," could imply both of them haven't been born yet. But what if it only means Shirahoshi? So far, all important countries that we thought used to be allied with the Great Kingdom have their heir with some special ability. Momonosuke of Wano has the power to order Zunisha and has Pluton hiding underneath. Shirahoshi of Fishman Island with the power to order Sea Kings and a huge Noah ship. Could it be the same for Loki of Elbaf and possibly Uranus?
Okay.
Interesting.
Do you know why I like this, and why I'm willing to take a step back from Kobe over this?
Sure.
Oh God, I freaking wish I said this when we were talking about it.
Okay. What is it?
At least I could say I asked the intro question, but I didn't let it leave my mouth because it sounded so silly. There are actually two reasons for this. Number one, I asked you about Oyame Kudasai, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The phrasing there and whether it was feminine. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why? Because when I read the Oyame Kudasai, I read it the first time in Shirahoshi's voice because she fucking says that. She does say that. She does.
Yeah, she does.
Next, the other is when oh my God, there's another reason this works really well. When I saw the Dendemushi, I was like, the only way Oda could make this even better, and like in the typical like Oda misdirect, is if it's the precise opposite of what you expect an old hairy Dendemushi to look like. which would be like Shirahoshi.
Right.
And it even because it has a male connotation to it, right? Being with the mustache and the beard. So the best misdirect would be for it actually to be a female. And that's why I was like, does this sound female to you? Because it sounded like Shirahoshi. So I will take a step back from that and say that yes, I wish I had stuck to that idea, but it sounded so dumb at the time. But and the third reason I like it, what was it? There was one other reason that it felt like her. I think this made sense. I don't know if I'm going to come with it, but if you have any reaction to that, please.
It is interesting. Like I just sort of, shrugged it off at first, but I am looking through the dialogue, and I do think my first inclination is to say that Shirahoshi's deal is that she is so polite that it borders on parody, and like Oda does a lot of jokes around that. It's the way that like she refers to everyone as something Chan-sama or whatever. She like doubles up on the polite suffixes and things like that. And it is not like over the top in the same way, although you could argue, I think it's fair to argue that like, okay, maybe Oda is just kind of slightly downplaying it so that it's not super obvious. But it is still, it's close enough that I think it's within the realm of possibility. I will point out, because I remember this, when Roger thought Shirahoshi would be hairy, I will point out, so mosa mosa, referring to someone being shaggy or furry or something, the adjective that they use for Neptune is moja moja. Which I remember because when Roger says like, oh yeah, your hairy daughter or whatever, and in Japanese, Neptune says moja moja senwa, like she's not going to be hairy. So it is a different word, which again, I think that might have been more of a direct line if he had used the exact same adjective there. So I don't know if I would count that one, but I do like that. You could say Shirahoshi's experience on Mary Jo was definitely traumatic. Like that was a bad scene for her, and they pretty much left that being like, yeah, we're never coming back up here again. Like if this is going to happen due to Charlos's nonsense. So very interesting.
I wrangled the last reason too. Is, oh my God, this makes a lot of sense. God, I really liked the Kobe idea too, but this makes way more sense. Like it's God, it's perfect. Okay, get to the point, Greg. What if Shirahoshi meets Loki and the first words out of her mouth are, anata ga type desu.
Oh, like, yeah, you're my type, you're not my type. That's
because he's this like scary looking dude, and he's got the horns and everything, not real horns probably, but the
helmet, yeah,
the helmet, and he's got this how can I put it, a katakuri aura about him. And she's got this whole thing with the type, and you think she'd be this for this like cutesy guy or this super bishonen kind of character, right? As a princess. But what if she sees this dude and she's like, type of this? It's such a good joke. And there's also something to go along with this as well, is because, and this ties into my mom stuff, is he was looking to marry somebody from mom's family, right?
Right.
Yes. And as far as we know, that was Lola, as far as we know.
Yes.
But if I'm right on memory hijinks, shenanigans, then it wasn't actually Lola, but it would have been Pudding. And if you compare Pudding and Shirahoshi, they are similar character types, obviously very different personality-wise.
Yeah.
But they're similar character types. As a giant mer woman, she would be a great match.
Mm-hmm.
Like physically speaking, I mean, it
Yes.
doesn't matter in this world, obviously, because
Clearly.
of size. Clearly, right? Proof is in the pudding. But it would just stylistically wise, they would be good matches for each other physically, size wise. Now, you want to talk about age and stuff and all this. I completely agree. That's all absurd. But it's absurd to begin with some of these ages of marriages and the arranged marriages, certainly.
Right.
But it is an angle that could work dramatically in the story, especially mixed with the type thing. Like if he is her type, then like it's kind of a match made in heaven, and everybody ends up happy in the end.
That would be real fun.
And pudding would then be, I mean, dramatically speaking, at least. Obviously, she's free to do whatever the fuck she wants, but dramatically speaking, it would be cathartic for her to be with Sanji. And I say that from the point of view of the story, with nothing to do with age and arranged marriage and all that other nonsense. So, yes, that is a great idea, and that I swear, because the Oyame Kudasai hit me as Shirahoshi. Really good question.
Yeah. We'll move on to Wisdom Pythagoras, who says, "Hello, Stephen and Greg and Simba. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday and a happy new year. There's been a lot going on with the Elbaf arc, but the one thing that's really intrigued me is the cultural shift among the giants. King Harold's ideas of trade and peace over plunder and war are strikingly similar to Mother Carmel's ideals, as mentioned by Jarl and Yorl in chapter 866. I've been quite fond of the idea of the world government using Carmel to instill these peaceful ideas into Elbaf as a way of pacifying the population over time, since they historically have been unable to conquer the giants through military might. Perhaps Harold was turned into a world government asset, and his death at Loki's hands could be the reason for his special bounty. It may even explain why or how these cloaked figures were able to be summoned within the royal castle if Harold or Carmel had set up whatever prerequisite conditions for the summoning all those years ago. Do you think we could be seeing something like this at play?"
Wow, 2 great ones in a row.
Yeah, that's a really good observation.
I would say that is entirely possible. After the chapter with the Dendemushi conversation, we can see that Loki is being set up to be the kind of waffling character, the anti-hero, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So whatever happened with his dad is going to be have a redeeming quality to it. He may not be responsible for it, or he might have perfectly good reasons for being responsible for it. Whatever it is, it's not as we're being set up to experience.
It will be recast in a different light at some point.
Yeah. So you're entirely on point here. That's a very good, astute view.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an interesting thing. And, I'm just kind of thinking of going back to that, the discussion about like the changing of the cultures and what that signifies. And I do believe that like Oda is a savvy enough storyteller, and he often finds a way to kind of throw in just enough like extra detail to something to like, nothing's ever like a perfectly happy ending, or nothing bad is necessarily without some silver lining or merit or something. So where like you could look at this concept, like say this is true, and that the world government is using Karma, or that she is a convenient vector for them to, to take the teeth out of the giants, so to speak. It's easy to look at that and say, okay, well, the narrative that Oda is creating is that peace is bad. Like the bad guys are trying to make you give up your weapons, and actually you should be violent, and you should be a warrior like culture, because that's strong and that's going to help you defend yourself better. And I think that would be a gross overstatement of like the type of story that Oda would be telling. I think that if that was true, he would find a way to kind of blur those lines and to make it more nuanced than that narrative would suggest.
That goes back to the library. Is the giants are going to have to be more physical. That is pretty much a given. But they also needs to be done in a way where they also protect what's important to them, in terms of education, peace, trading,
yes,
being a quote unquote modern society. How he'll balance that and how he'll frame what Harold did or did not do is all on point. So I am looking forward to seeing that play out.
Yeah. Next, Professional Poyo says, howdy, Stephen, Greg, and Simba. Do you think haired Spanx and random bandage lady might possibly be members of the Holy Knights? The Black Lightning certainly implies they're tied to Emu, and by extension, the Celestial Dragons. And yeah, I know fan drawings interpret the knights as being actual knights, but it's not like Emperors of the Sea are dressed in royal garb, so who cares? I just feel like Oda is going to have to introduce the Holy Knights sooner rather than later, so why not in Elbaf? Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Completely. I mean, I'm sorry. It's already decided in my mind.
Yeah. I think it's a very straightforward. Like we saw Garling like dressed up like a knight in the flashback, right? Was he dressed up in armor when he was the champion of God Valley or something? Am I remembering that image correctly?
I don't know if he had armor, but he had some highfalutin garb.
These guys that if they are not like knights in shining armor style knights, they could be like Jedi style knights where, you know, they're wearing robes, they look mysterious. There could be a little bit of something there.
Yeah, I don't think there's any need for them to be physically dressed up in armor,
in a uniform
at any point. Because first thing, you made a good point about the Shichibukai. Is the Shichibukai were drawn in shadow, right? In all these like weird outfits and garments, with the swords and looking all with decorum and respect, and there's nothing like that whatsoever.
Yeah,
except for maybe Mihawk.
He watched Lord of the Rings, and he was like, "Oh man, the 9 Kings of Man and the 7 Dwarf Lords or whatever. Like those guys looked awesome. You know, let me just draw them in silhouette here."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. Very very curious though. Definitely an item of high interest at this moment in time. Is what's the deal with those knights? All right,
what's
finally,
the deal with those knights?
Finally, our last question here from username Greg is cool. Let's see if this is just trying to butter you up. Greg, can you please do everything in your power as live action series advisor to make sure Netflix doesn't cut out the scene in the Little Garden arc in the live action series when Nami gets her clothes burnt off and we get to see her in her bra? Here's your 10-foot pole, sir. Would you care to touch it?
On so many levels. I have done what I can for season 2. We'll see what happens. We'll see what comes out.
Yeah. Hey, we're just at the start of 2025. It's a long year. We'll see. We'll see what develops. And yeah, I don't think we actually have any, or wait, maybe we do. We might have one set of questions on Twitter. So I guess we'll do our lightning round here.
Okay.
This is hashtag SGS Sensei if you wish to submit any questions in the future. This is from our usual friend B at Champagne Bala, who asks, here we go. Question 1. When will Luffy meet his dad? I don't know if it's going to happen in Elbaf.
I have an annoying and unsatisfying answer for that. It's when it's dramatically appropriate.
Yeah.
And we can't know when that's going to be yet. I could make predictions based on sort of different sort of iterations and things, but like At this point, it's not dramatically important. The only thing it could possibly offer is catharsis to readers who want to see Luffy meet his dad.
Yes.
There
has
Luffy
to be a good reason.
Has no reason to want to see his dad. At this point in the story, if Luffy met his dad, he'd be like, oh, otosan ka. Right?
Yeah. Right.
Like, there needs to be a dramatic reason for him to meet him that makes it worthwhile. Unless it's played off as just kind of a joke.
Yeah. My actual guess is I would say probably final arc, last their big Marineford equivalent where different sides are converging and there's a bunch of different factors at play and factions. I think that's the most likely place because it is, like you said, it's hard to see what the reason would be at this point. Their paths would have to cross for a very specific reason.
Now that is if Oda does decide to do something dramatic with it. If he does not, then he could just have them meet and do something unique and just have them be like, hey, what's up? Kind of like the Whitebeard scene where Luffy just meets Whitebeard.
Right,
like,
right.
Okay.
And then the takeaway is just kind of like it's less about like, oh, this is fulfilling something meaningful to Luffy, and it's more like isn't life strange sometimes? Like that this sequence of events caused these two people to come together, and what led them in through their lives to come to this point. But it may not be, like you said, like an emotional thing.
Yeah.
Next question. What's the deal with Blackbeard and Umit? Is it Fishman Island access? When was Umit? He was just in the story like a couple chapters ago. Was he visiting Pirate Island? I cannot remember now. Is this ringing a bell?
The Yami.
Yeah, the shipping magnate guy who was at Big Mom's or at Sanji and Pudding's wedding.
The only reason for the character to be utilized is shipping. You said he's a shipping one. He was one of the powers that was there, right?
Yeah,
the only reason for him to be in the story,
guy,
okay, is for, I guess, one character to have either a single piece of not merchandise, but either a single item that is of such great significance that only someone with the greatest power in the world could make sense for them to transport it safely, or vast amounts of a certain resource that they would need for the story to make sense. In other words, if it was anybody other than this character transporting whatever this is, you'd call bullshit on it. But because this person has been set up as such an amazing, like one of the greatest in their field in existence at doing this shady work, you'd be like, oh, okay, well, I guess it makes sense that this person could do it. So whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I did look. I had to do a word search because I knew if I had to go through each chapter script, I was like, okay, where was he just mentioned? It was 1126, and it is a Blackbeard centric scene where they're going over the stuff that has happened, and then he calls. He says, "Patch me into Lafitte," and Lafitte calls from or is coming in from the headquarters of Umit's shipping company, and he is giving them the update about like all of the stuff happening around Marijoa, where like the gondolas are breaking down and they're not able to get the ships in, et cetera, et cetera. So he is there. There's some connection going on there, presumably. I'm not sure what to make of that, though. I doubt it has anything to do with Fishman Island, but maybe it will work out that way with Caribou's news about Shirahoshi.
Whatever it is, it has to be a vast amount of something or a single great thing that that he is able to safely transport or obtain for them.
Yeah.
Whether that is ships proper or a resource or a piece of merchandise. That's his sole reason for being. I mean, the character himself is not going to end up to be some incredibly important character central to the plot. He's just a means to an end that will help make things make sense for Blackbeard's
right. His goal.
I don't know.
His whatever he's doing.
Yeah. His plans.
Yeah. Next question. Do you think Dragon is rocks? I'd never thought of this before.
Rocks. Dragon is rocks.
He would have to be older than he seems, I think. Dragon, I mean.
Yeah, that exactly. First thing I'm going into is timeline mode, right?
Yeah.
And I think the first thing you might tend to go to is like, no, that doesn't make sense because the crew were all older.
Right.
Well, look at Luffy. He's on the younger end. I think the only one who beats him in young is Chopper, right? And he's the same age as Usopp.
I think it's more like so
age
we know that
53, age 55 after time skip. Okay.
We know that Kaido was like the youngin of the crew, right? Like he was like the little brother to Lin Lin, basically. Yeah. And if Kaido was, how old was he in the modern era?
Kaido?
I thought he was a bit older.
He's in the modern era.
He's still 60 or 50 something.
He's around there, yeah. Because he's almost Doki with mom.
Yeah.
No, she's a little bit older than him. So he would have been early 50s, late 40s. I'm sorry, I don't have it memorized. I never bothered that. But yeah, he would have been he would have been young. He would have been young. He would have been actually, Jesus. He would have been around Luffy's age, maybe. I'm not doing the math.
If Dragon
but
was,
he'd be within a couple of years of Luffy. He'd be older than Luffy is now, but he'd be in the range.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that maybe part of it is also that like the one image that we do have of Rocks, it kind of looks like he has like sort of longer, darker hair, which does resemble Dragon a bit. I don't know how much that evidence means anything.
We know that he was a Marine, right?
Did they say that?
I'm pretty sure he was. Yes,
that,
okay.
That was in the Garp flashback with Kuzan, where he's talking about.
Yes, he used to be a Marine.
Okay.
Let me actually pull that out. This is going to be another really interesting part for our listeners as I leaf through the manga. This is what you come here, folks. 97. Yeah. No, see. Okay. Yes. No. Because at this time, God, it might line up. It might line up. and also, like with his, I'm looking at him here at the end of chapter 1097, and like he does have that crazy hair thing going on. And also to have Garp beating down his own son. Plus, I mean, Jesus, you got him looking here with the with all the Kakumegun, with the revolutionaries.
The revolutionaries, yeah.
And he does have that hair that looks like it. That's really interesting. Could Dragon be rocks? Rokusu Dorago Rokusu.
It's like there's a part of me that finds that satisfying in the way that like discovering or uncovering unlikely connections between things, like sort of strengthens them within the context of a story, and makes things more interesting. There's a reason why those kind of reveals are so powerful. But at the same time, I do think that a part of me would be kind of annoyed or disappointed or just not super happy with the fact that like there's so much about Dragon's backstory that we have been told at points that it does feel it's a little bit like finding out that like posthumously that Ace defeated the other warlord that created the opening for what's his name to take over, like through an SBS, as opposed to something that we learned in the story, like that it was just completely uncommented on by anyone. I found that strained credulity, and I think that kind of the same thing would happen if it was like, oh, Dragon used to be in the Navy, and he used to be a pirate, and now he is a revolutionary, and we heard about like one of those things before now. So I don't know.
God damn, dude. If this is correct, he would have been... Jesus. This is a pain in the ass. He would have been... Rox would have been... If it was him, he would have been 17 at the time.
Of God Valley.
And, yeah. And Luffy was able to set out on his adventure at 17.
Right.
Which is really annoying. But, and this is a big but, I don't think he would have been able to. Would he have been able to? Oh, yeah, he can, because Kobe's much younger. Shit. Kobe's super young, and he joined the Marines. So he would have been able to be a Marine before 17. Theoretically, it works. I don't think there's anything in the story that I've okay. In my time wasting time here on the podcast talking to you and leafing through a book,
yes,
this time it has taken me to quote unquote research this. I have not found any hard evidence that says it is actually impossible by age that could or could not have happened.
Okay, there you go. Next question: can Logias awaken? Sure, why not? I don't know. Yeah. How many rules does Oda really have about these devil fruits? Clearly, he can invent new categories like special paramecia whenever he needs to imbue them with a different property.
I mean, that's kind of one of his final frontiers, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's like
that's
kind of the one thing that he's holding. I mean,
right.
Hockey is almost endless, but in terms of devil fruits, like he's gone through it pretty much all at this point. That's the one thing that's left. So,
sure. And unless he specifically has a character come out and say, "Oh no, those Logias are not supposed to be able to awaken. Only the other two kinds can." Like no one's ever said that. So we have no reason to.
Yami is a Logia, right?
I honestly do not know. I will be very honest. I don't really pay attention to the categories.
It has to be. It has to be by nature of default, because that's the whole point. Is if he gets the three types, and Gura is absolutely paramecia. So yes, it is Logia. Then fuck yeah, they can, because that's how he can use Blackbeard, and awakened Yami fruit. He can just create darkness. Yes. Love it.
All right. Will Luffy fight both Akainu and Imu in the same arc? I'm not convinced that he's going to fight Akainu.
I'm in the same boat. I think people might want some catharsis there, and
right.
Oda may feel compelled to deliver on that. I don't know. I can't answer for him. But again, it's if it makes sense and is possible within the drama that's occurring at the time. Because if we think about all the people that Luffy supposedly has to give a punch to, like, I think it might be like on the way to doing something, or in the middle of doing something.
Yeah, I absolutely do not say. If I'll say this, I think that Luffy could fight Akainu, absolutely. I do not see him as like the central antagonist in a story arc. Yeah.
It might even be 1v1 for a bit, but I mean, there's also somebody was just asking me at Arlong Park. They're like, "What about Smoker?" And I was like, "Yeah, you kind of need to have a standoff of some type, but like, how many standoffs can he have?"
Yeah.
It's going to be a Marineford where, like, you know, Mihawk is there and he technically fights Mihawk for, you know, a second or two. I think there'll be a lot of that, and that's not necessarily to say that any confrontation with Sakazuki would be a second or two, because they do have history. They really do. There's no question about that. And Luffy probably want to pound him one, but just same thing for Blackbeard. He blames Blackbeard just as much, because he knows that Blackbeard is the reason for why Ace was in prison in the first place. So yeah, how do you sparse that out?
Yeah. Yep. A lot of faces to punch. Last one here. Straw Hat Fruit Awakening Theories. I mean, I think they're all very possible. I doubt that any of them would happen before like the ultimate fights that they would have at the end. I do feel like it is kind of that you know, it's like the Megazord in Power Rangers, right? Like you can't do it before the end of the episode. Like it has to be the last thing, because nothing could be more powerful than that. There's nowhere to go from there. So
the only thing that got after that is combining the power of the devil fruit with hockey somehow.
Yeah.
And that's going to be messy just thinking about it. That's not going to be easy for him. So
at that point, he's turned it into like one of those like wuxia, like cultivation novels where you know characters are gods that are blending, you know, thousands of kinds of chi and doing all this sort of stuff. I think he's keeping it slightly more grounded than that.
They're level 20 characters in a level 5 forest.
Yeah. 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 But
you see a goblin, you incinerate it with your sight.
Yeah. I think that's going to do it for our SGS questions, though. As always, as I said at the top, if you are a member of our Patreon, you can get access to the Patreon segment on our Discord, where you can submit questions to our SGS channel there, or you can use the hashtag SGS Sensei, all one word, on Twitter or Blue Sky. I will check them both before we record each episode. And with that, let's round it off. This has been the One Piece Podcast, episode 851 for the week of Monday, January 13th, 2025. It has been... And
what an episode it has been. This has been a roller coaster for me. Great questions.
It was a big one.
I came up with a theory that I loved, and then a reader question made me hate it and hate myself for not speaking up. And God, golly, what an episode.
Yeah, it's
great
been
questions.
An experience. Yeah, fun times. I definitely have some new things to look for and look forward to in the next chapter when the manga returns next week. But until then, Greg, where can people find you? What have you been up to that you would like them to know about?
You can find me on Twitter at Ochimusha108, and over on the One Piece homepage, I do columns. Probably bi-weekly from this point on. At least twice a month we're trying to go for.
Nice.
And V-Jump magazine, which is all in Japanese. So good luck.
If you can read that, you know what to do. You know how to figure that out. All right. And you can find me over on active on Blue Sky at stephenpaul.bsky.social. As I mentioned before, my reread is Is it going to be finished by the time this comes out? Close to it, almost. I finished all of the volumes, so it's at the point where I can only reread the chapters by going into the PDFs of the Japanese chapters that I get. So that's how close I am to being all caught up. It was quite a ride. I didn't really like treat it with a lot of reverence as far as like, oh, let me go into exactly where I am at each stage. It was more of just a kind of, whenever anything caught my interest. But I will say, if you listeners are the type of folks to enjoy something like that with a little kind of a daily structure to it, 3 chapters a day is a very nice, like, it's still going to take you more than a year at this point to get through the entire series, but it's not too long to read every day. I didn't find it too difficult to keep up with it. So it was a fun ride. Seems like every couple of years I'm good for one of those. As for the podcast, though, you can check us out on our site at onepiecepodcast.com. You can follow us on our social media. We are still on Twitter at onepiecepodcast.com, although it's mostly inactive now. I think it's just really for promoting the new episodes when they drop. We are more active on Blue Sky at onepiecepodcast.com. That is where we are sharing all the latest news. Adil has been very busy posting that stuff and digging up like anniversaries of random events. He must have some crazy calendar where he is able to call upon things like what was it the other day? It was the 24th anniversary of when the crew did the barrel ceremony where they put their feet up on the barrel as they headed into the Grand Line. Stuff like that. You can see those things over on Blue Sky. We are also on YouTube at the One Piece Podcast. The episodes do go up there, so if that's a more convenient place for you to listen, they're usually up within about a day or so of when they come out. And of course, get us where you get your podcasts. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify and pretty much all of those sources. Of course, you can also call us at our phone number at 347-497-MAJI. That's 347-497-6254. Call anytime. We will not respond, but maybe it'll make for a good story. Having said all that, it's been a very long and meaty episode of the SGS, so I'm ready to give my voice a little break here, but we will round it out. It's been a great chatting with you, Greg.
Yeah, and a happy start to the new year.
Exactly, yeah. We'll see how many more of these we get in over the course of the year. Hopefully not too many, because then it means Oda's been taking more breaks than usual. But having said that, let's round it off. My name is Steven.
My name is Greg, and I'm going to see if I can go copyright some Nakamos.
Very nice.